You guys ever see Cool World? It's this weird 1992 Roger Rabbit kind of movie, live action animation mix starring Brad Pitt, that guy from Excalibur, and the lady who played Vicky Vale in Batman '89. And for some reason, they decided to give a game about basically crime, death, and all sorts of weird shit a Super Nintendo game. Hello everyone and welcome to Let's Play Cool World. And this game is, well, as you might be able to tell by the title of the video, very short first off. It's only one part long. And honestly, this is basically filler because I'm working on the next games right now, but I need something to hold the time over. Cool World is a very easily a licensed game though, because it's short. What we just got there was the punching glove. By now pressing the B button, we can now punch forward, and if we press the X button, we can range up like that. We want to grab the car keys right here for later. Now, one thing you're going to be able to tell throughout this entire video is that this is a very 90s licensed game, and by that I mean it's not particularly good. Though I'll give it this, it's better than like 90% of the other licensed games on movies from the time. Either way, now we just grab those car keys right there. Our next goal is to collect those things that were on the bottom of the screen just there and are now on the top left. Nickels. They are our currency for this first part of the game, and we need them in order to get stuff. Also, these are here for random tips. And as that one just said, when we punch an enemy, the biff sound effect shows up. If you hit an enemy twice in a row, though, or it's every 2 hits technically, a flashing biff will show up, and if you touch that, you get invincibility. Now, I will say there's a lot I'm actually not doing in this game, namely getting arrested by the police and a few other minor things that you can do. But for the most part, I'm just here to try and get through this game as quickly as possible. You do want to collect as many nickels as you want. I think you need a total of, maybe 20-ish throughout the game. Now we want to get that book so we can enter the library. And while we're in here, immediately grab the flowers. The thing is about this game is that not only is it a licensed game in terms of setup, but it's also one of those very cryptic licensed games where they never really tell you what to do. The only reason I know how to do all this is trial and error from when I was a little kid. Well, not little. I first discovered this game through a friend of mine who mentioned the movie to me at one point. And I watched the movie, and honestly, the movie's not very good, but I find it enjoyable. It has like, what was it, like a 4% on Rotten Tomatoes for a reason. But I still think it's actually enjoyably bad. But either way, my friend introduced it to me, I did some research about it, and then I found the game. And I played it, and I beat it in 2 hours, and it was hell. Nowadays, though, I know my way around. We need the flowers in order to enter the bar here so we can get past the bouncer. And now what we need to do is actually here in the club, take care of all the enemies in here. Because what we need to do is that bartender below there, if you talk to him, I think it's for like 1 to 2 nickels, will give you a soda. And you need to get that to the end of the hall in order to get access to another part of the area. However, if you either swing your fist or get damaged while holding said soda, it's not going to last long. Also, I'm pretty sure they just censored that because if I recall correctly in the movie, and the equivalent scene to this in the movie, it was just, what was it? Beer. I think. It's been a while since I last saw the movie. If I recall, this was licensed and developed by Ocean Software, who, if I recall correctly, were responsible for some of the Hook games as well. I know they're very famous for doing a lot of licensed games. You know what? Let me check that out. Now, one thing, well, first off, we're coming out here at the end, and you're going to see why you need to kill all the enemies. To talk to Holly, you have to fetch her a soda. Holly is the girl who was on the title screen. To summarize the movie's plot, essentially this comic writer and artist, I forget his name, it's like Deebs or something, gets dragged into the world of his comic, quote-unquote, and things just get weird from there. Because Kim Basinger's character, Holly, wants to have sex with our main character, and it gets weirder after that, because essentially she wants to try and free herself from the animated world of Cool World and become real, and it's weird, and the movie is very strange, if you can't tell. You do need to flip the switches in this area to turn on and off the little lights, though, because you need to get past the first two, which are shooting things at you, so you need to turn the thing off. Then you need to turn the switch back on so you can get this thing up here. By the way, don't touch that bar fight, because that's an instant kill. And there's Holly. And she's been waiting for us and wants us to come around her place later, where we can be alone. Oh boy. If I recall, you can just exit to the right, but I did the safe way and just went left. Now, if there's anything I can say about Cool World as a game that I like, is that I actually think for a Super Nintendo game, this looks pretty good. Some of the enemy sprites are a bit but like but Deeb's sprite in the backgrounds, I think those are actually pretty well done. Don't touch that red guy there, by the way, because he will steal all of your nickels, and that is not good. And we're gonna need that cooler card for later. Now, the weird thing about this game is that the way you get your items isn't by pressing a button normally, it's by pressing down so you can crouch and pick it up. It's a bit odd. But welcome to the game's worst type of sections, the driving sections. The car is very fragile. I think it's like 5 hits and it's down, and then you have to start the entire area over. There's also bottomless pits all over the place, which can obviously kill you. And there's an odd amount of actual traffic laws to follow, because you actually do need to follow the green and red lights. Thankfully, the 2 sections in the game you're required to do, well, actually technically 3, are very short. And welcome to Candyland. This place is the home of my nightmares. Candyland is a bit of an odd place, because first off, you need to grab a lot of the sweets you see around the area. Ice cream cones, lollipops, candy, anything you see. You need at least, I think, 12 in the entire game, because we need to enter the malt shop that's in the center of this area. Also, take care of any enemies you can, because the clearer the area is, the better. The interesting thing is about the enemies in this game is that I think they do come back when you die, but if you don't die, they actually never respawn. I think. There's at least one area they respawn, and that's coming up. Also, look, retroactively, this stage is reminding me a lot of Hackland from Smash 4. And welcome to the malt shop. We're gonna need to come here twice throughout the game. And our goal is to get an item in the top right. Because the thing is, I didn't go straight to Holly's apartment like you think you would be supposed to after talking to her at the bar. The thing is, she won't talk to you unless you have a certain item. It's one of those, you don't know you need it until you need it kind of things. So I'm just going to go pick it up right away. It's the gift right here in the top right of the malt shop. If you didn't have that when you went to talk to Holly, she's just going to say, screw off. Oh god, cat. However, if there's one thing I can really say about this game I don't like, the soundtrack is really boring. Though, from what we know about the development team for this game at least, or at least what I know, it's impressive they got this much done. Because if I recall, this game had a total development staff of like 3 or 4 people, which is, not the best amount of people. And now this car section, which really sucks, because there's also ramps added in there, so those little arrows which make you jump forward. And that jump right there with that light constantly kills me just because of the fact that if you are a second too late from slowing down a bit, you're probably going to fall in the pit and die. And welcome to Holly's apartment. If I recall, you could walk left from the main Cool World area to get here. Our goal is to climb all the way to the top. Why? Because that's where Holly is. I'll give this game credit where it's due. I think it actually does a decent job of representing the scenes from Cool World. It's just the fact that a lot of the things get lost in translation. Like, the fact that we can make our fist turn into that cartoon fist a la Mickey Mouse. That happens towards the end of the movie. For no real discernible reason, mind you, because Cool World's weird. Alright, but we got the gift and we're up at Holly, so let's go and talk to her. Also, weird thing, to talk to everyone, you need to press up, more or less. Alright, let's get sex, or just a kissing on the cheek. Yeah, in the actual movie, they do screw here, and because of that, she becomes real and goes over to our world where she's gonna try and do things. It's implied she wants to conquer the world, even in the movie, but I forget if they ever explicitly state it. And now we're back in Cool World, but before we move on, we actually want to head into this pawn shop and grab something. No, do not sell your sweets. You still need them. We want to get the pen, and we need to trade the present for it because you can only have one inventory item up there at a time, apparently, even though it's really inconsistent about that. And at this point, you need to rush. Why? The moment you get the pen, an invisible time limit starts ticking down for you to be sent back to the real world. So we need to head back to Candyland in order to grab something that we need, though. Because the weird thing is in this game is that even if you grab an item and grab another one after that, the game still considers you having had or having the other items. So, like, when at the start of the game, I picked up the punching glove to be able to punch, yes, but then I immediately picked up, like, the car keys or some other, I think it was the book, so I can enter the library. But it still considered me having collected the punching bag so I could still punch. So even though we now have the pen, we need to go and grab an item over in Candyland. But yeah, the movie was actually directed by the guy who I remember most for doing the first 2 animated Lord of the Rings movies, and I gotta say, I really love the animated Lord of the Rings movies, aside from the third one. The first 2 were good. Either way, now we're back in the malt shop. Before we had to go to the top right, but now we have to go to the top left. And it's here you can actually find a bit of very easy AI abuse that I don't really do until right now. The thing is about the enemies is that a lot of them try to home in on you the moment you're around a certain area of them. So because of this, you can abuse it and make them jump off ledges, like so. If I didn't do that, getting this spike would have been really annoying. And this is the item we need. Also, I didn't talk about it before, but the way you use the pen is press the A button. I believe this was all in the manual, but I never had the manual for this. Admittedly, the movie is not good, but I think it's actually very entertaining. It's one of those kind of movies that's so bizarre that you just can't help but not tear your eyes off. Plus, the actors try their best with what they get. And admittedly, aesthetically, Cool World's a very beautiful movie. The animation is just really well done. It doesn't blend the best with the live action. Roger Rabbit, I think, is still one of the best movies with that, but I think it did its best. And right now, we just need to wait until this happens. We must return to our world to capture all the rogue doodles that have passed over. That's right. If I recall, Holly's trying to conquer our world with the doodles. It's weird. I can't even really explain the plot of Cool World without getting very, very confused myself. And now we're in Los Angeles. Now, this entire area here... Well, first off, there's this guy. Take the spike to the top of the Ocean Hotel. That's our goal for the final area. This entire area has a little thing you can do where there's all sorts of little doodles you can collect with the pen, but you don't need to do it. You get nothing for doing it as far as I'm aware, except for maybe practice as to how to use the pen. The only thing that's really to do in this area is something in the bottom right. And we'll get to that in a moment. Also, the really annoying thing, you can't use your pen to hit enemies when you're invincible. So really what it does is just make you not have a hitbox, I suppose. Or at least not a damage hitbox. I have to wonder why they would add pointless stuff like this, but I guess it was to make it more accurate to the movie because this stuff did happen. But, yeah, why? Either way, the one thing you can do in this area is in here. This is higher or lower. It's a very similar thing. You've probably actually seen this in a few games already. The way it works is that you have a card, and you have to choose either if the next card's going to be higher or lower. For doing this, each successful one you get gets you an extra coin, I believe. Yes, it does. And this is only needed if you haven't gotten everything in the other place yet. Say you got the pen first and were just sent back here. Because the thing is, once you get the pen, you're frequently sent back and forth between Cool World and the real world. Though it takes a while for you to be sent back to Cool World from the real world for some reason. And that's it. That's all you ever do in this area. So with that, we're primed to go right to the end of the game. This game is really short. It's shorter than the original Kirby, even. Mind you, that's kind of the stigma. Not the stigma, that's not the right term. A problem with a lot of licensed games is that, for the most part, they're pretty short games. Hook on the Super Nintendo wasn't so, but that's because it was actually just a full-out good game. One of the Back to the Future games wasn't like that. I think it was probably the Telltale ones, though. And here we are at the Ocean Hotel. This is, I think his name is like Nils or Nails the spider. And we're going to be climbing up. We're controlling him, technically. We're not controlling Deebs right now. We need to climb all the way to the top. The way I would do this is head all the way to the left and then just hug the wall. The way this is supposed to work is that you're supposed to stay on one of the little things we're on right now while it's avoiding any enemies and little clouds. Because for some reason, the spider's allergic to clouds. That's not me making that up. The movie actually states that he's allergic to clouds. And it's weird. And once you're at the top of that, you're at the final stretch. I consider this the closest thing this game has to a boss rush. We got the little baby here, which sends teardrops at you that are pretty annoying to dodge. Gotta grab that key, by the way. This lady who throws instant kill grenades, you gotta use the key to free this blue guy, although you can use your fist to knock him all the way to the right. The purple guy's back from the bar, and the way we need to do this is constantly keep ourselves moving while punching down this wall. If you even move, I think, like a total of a pixel, it'll reset the timer for his little burp cloud thing. This game is weird. But once you do that, the part of the phase is over. I'm just glad they didn't have us repeat that twice in a row. Next up is the red guy from Cool World. I didn't talk about him then, but if you actually ran into him, he would have taken all your nickels. The way this part works is that you press X and make the ceiling collapse on him. The best places to do that are the first one on the far right and the second one on the far right, because I think he actually does have a health bar, and it takes like a certain amount of things falling on his head, and the one on the far right on the top does 4 hits in a row. And here we are at the ending. Holly's going to be constantly sending out little doodles after us. They will damage you. In fact, they'll do a lot of damage to you if they're constantly still moving at you, but the moment they stop moving, they no longer have a hitbox except for being absorbed by the pen. Actually, that's one thing I can give this game credit for that a lot of other licensed games didn't seem to get. You can get hit multiple times before dying, and you know you're on your last hit when your life counter in the top right there starts flashing. Which, you know, points to them for doing that right. Because if there's anything that annoys me more about old licensed games, it's one-hit kills. But once after a certain point, Holly does stop sending out the doodles, so at that point it just becomes go right and finish the game. And we're done. And then Holly exploded. This game is weird. And that's the ending. And for some reason we're sent out of Cool World, even though we were still in the real world. What? And that's the ending. By the way, that little code there shows on the order of the buttons will bring up the credits at any time when you're on the main menu. And that's Cool World. It's a game. I don't think it's actually outright terrible, because I think it's a lot more playable than a lot of other licensed games. But it doesn't really have much of a reason to exist. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's pretty harmless in the long run, because I have had fun playing it, and it's short enough to the point where you can beat it in under 20 minutes, obviously. So it's just kind of there. You can play it if you want to. If you want, I think this is only ever on the Super Nintendo. There were other Cool World games, which were on like NES and Game Boy, and I think some computers. Yeah, the Commodore 64, Amiga, Atari ST, and MS-DOS. But I think those were different games, technically. But yeah, with that, I'm going to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and next time, and by that I mean tomorrow, Monday, we're heading back to a certain series that I love, but I haven't played enough of. It's time for us to go back to the other blue guy who fights a mustachioed villain. See you guys then.